Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over potential tropical storm Gamma, and we're going to be giving you an update on this potential tropical storm. We're going to be going over where it could potentially make landfall. There's a very wide range, anywhere from about Florida to northern Mexico could see a potential landfall, really depending on which of the models are correct. The Canadian model wanting to bring this straight northward into parts of Florida and Alabama, while the GFS and the European model, as well as many other models, want to bring this to the west and straight into northern Mexico or southern Texas as a strong tropical storm, or maybe even a Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane. So let's continue with the current National Weather Service page, and then we'll go to the National Hurricane Center and start talking about this hurricane. And they're slowly expanding these frost advisories and freeze warnings, which are currently overtaking some of the state of West Virginia, as well as some of Ohio, northern Indiana, and parts of Michigan there. And while I started to make this video, while I started to get all these maps together, only this part of Michigan actually had any frost and freeze warnings in effect. But now it's scraped all the way down into parts of Indiana and Ohio. So you really have to keep up with the current National Weather Service page. And I'll be making a post later on today, most likely, informing you guys on every single area that has frost and freeze warnings, like I did yesterday on my community tab. Now, we also have some red flag warnings in effect for parts of Wyoming and Colorado, as well as some for parts of Utah there, and also coastal California has a slew of red flag warnings, heat advisories, and excessive heat warnings, with some air quality alerts in effect and some smoke advisories in effect for parts of Wyoming, Colorado, California, and Oregon and Washington there. Other than that, there's not a lot going on in terms of watches and warnings. So let's get right into it here, and let's start off with your current National Hurricane Center page. We have current Tropical Depression 25, which is what could potentially become Gamma, and then we have what could become Delta right behind that, which is currently west of the Lesser Antilles, and that'll be moving into the Caribbean. Now, the only way that this storm moves to the north is if this storm, which is currently potential Gamma, or actually potential Delta, moves further to the west and to the north at the same time that 25, or potential tropical storm Gamma, is moving to the north as well. All the models bring this to the north, but what happens is that over this part of the Gulf of Mexico, some of the models end up bringing this to the west, and most of them do, while the Canadian model and some other outliers want to bring this to the north. So there is a big discrepancy on what happens. Most of the models that have this storm moving to the north also have this merging up with Delta. So if Delta can move very quickly over the southern Caribbean and then move into the Gulf of Mexico, it'll most likely steer this storm right up into parts of the Gulf Coast of Florida and Alabama. Well, if it just goes the normal route and both of them are kind of apart from each other, you'll start to see this one curve over to the left or off to the west. Now, here is the current satellite loop of Tropical Depression 25. It currently has maximum sustained winds of about 35 miles per hour, located at 18.1 degrees north by about 84.7 degrees west, moving northwest at 9 miles per hour with a minimum pressure of about 1,005 millibars with this storm. Now, here's the key messages for the storm. I'm not going to read them out here, but you can pause the video and read them if you would like to. Here is the cone of uncertainty forecast from the National Hurricane Center, and they are keeping this as a tropical storm, or intensifying it to a tropical storm just as it's about to make landfall with the Yucatan Peninsula. And the National Hurricane Center is more certain that this will move off to the west, and so am I. I think it's a greater chance, probably I would give it a 90% chance to move off to the west, maybe a slight chance, 10% chance that this moves over to Florida, Alabama, and we'll have to see what happens if it does actually make that northward trek. We'll know all the information probably by, I would say, Sunday or Monday, while it's starting to either make its westward track or whether it would make a northward track. That's the date that will really know whether that is going to occur or whether this is just going to stay off to the west. Now, here would be the model track guidance for the storm. We see many of the main models bring this to the west. Only one or two of these models actually bring this to the north. Now, Here is the GFS ensemble models, and these ones are a little bit more all over the place. Now, they have a much wider range, and you can tell by on the thumbnail, I'm not very certain with this storm. I do want to not count out this opportunity that it moves up like this, although I do think it is more likely it goes off to the west. But you see this wide range. Here is by the same time frame, this would be 96 hours out. Here's where all the models for the GEFS are showing the storm tracking through. You can see the very wide range in these models. They are very uncertain with this storm, but one thing that they are very certain on is the intensity. This looks like it could definitely become a high-end tropical storm, maybe a Category 1, maybe even a Category 2. Now, here is the tropical storm force wind speed probabilities, and we're looking at right around a 40 to 50% chance of those. And your 58 mile per hour wind speeds, we're looking at about a 5 to 10% chance of that occurring. Here's your model intensity guidance just for reference, and we're looking at most of the models keeping this as a tropical storm, although a Category 1 hurricane cannot be ruled out. Now, here is the GFS model, and then we're going to look at the Canadian model. The GFS model is going to bring this over to the west, while the Canadian model is going to bring this to the north. So let's start playing this through. We're going to go through 24-hour increments. So here would be by tomorrow morning, October 3rd, and we're looking at this over just about to make landfall with the northern Yucatan Peninsula. Now let's move with this forward a little bit more. This would be by Sunday morning, and we're looking at parts of the Gulf of Mexico starting to get into some of this, some of the tropical storm action. Now here would be by Monday morning, October 5th, still that storm over the central Gulf of Mexico by this point. Here would be by Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it's still moving westward. So as it moves into this part of the Gulf of Mexico, this is going to be a vital time to know whether this is going to shift further to the west or this is going to go to the north, and whether which one actually ends up happening is going to really alter preparations for the storm. If this continues northward, well, now you only have 2 or 3 days to prepare, whereas if this were to move westward, now you have 5 or 6 days to prepare. So hopefully this moves out to the west into a less favorable environment. If it moves to the north and combines with the other storm, it'll be a much stronger storm, as you'll see on the Canadian. Now, here would be by Friday, October 9th, and the GFS is spinning up quite a robust storm. Now, I don't think it's going to be as strong as the GFS is showing. I think it's overplaying this just a little bit. Now, here would be by Saturday, October 10th, and then here would be by the 11th, and you see it's really just stalling out. But the real main thing that's going to hold this back is that you have very strong shear that's moving up across parts of the western Gulf of Mexico, which you don't have over this part of the Gulf of Mexico. So luckily, if this does move to the west, I do think the shear will rip this apart, and I think that'll be something that can counteract the storm. The GFS really is not taking that into account, and that's why I don't think this is a very accurate run of the model in terms of intensity. Now, here would be by October 12th, and then here would be by Tuesday, October 13th, and then here would be by the 14th as it's making landfall. Now, let's start looking at the Canadian model, which I've been saying is going to move to the north according to this model, and will potentially make landfall with Florida and Alabama according to this model. Now, let's play this through and see what happens. Here would be by October 4th in the morning, and we're looking at this moving over the northern Yucatan Peninsula, and so far the tracks are fairly similar. Now, I'm going to actually play this back one frame. Look where potential tropical storm Delta, the storm behind Gamma, is. It's all the way down here, and this is 24 hours previous. So this would be by October 4th, and then here would be where potential Gamma is. Look where the storm, I'm going to leave these two circles on the screen. Look where these storms are going to end up in another 24 hours. Look at where potential Gamma moves, and then look at where Delta moves. Delta by this point is over here, and I'll actually do that in a different color here. Here would be where Delta is, and here would be where Gamma is by this point. So Gamma's actually moved to the east a little bit, backtracked a little bit, while Gamma, or actually Delta, is starting to move a little bit further to the north. So this is something that we're going to have to account for. If this can just stall out, and this storm Delta is moving further to the north and to the west at a fairly rapid pace, we could definitely have something very, very strong on our hands. Now, Here would be, let's start playing this forward. Here would be by October 6th, October 7th. Here would be by October 8th. And we're looking at now, it's in the central Gulf of Mexico. And it's looking like it's going to make a similar track to the GFS. But look what's going to happen. It's going to now start to take that northward trek because a high pressure has had time to build in. And that strong shear coming out of the southwest is now pulling this to the north and to the east, which you didn't have when this storm was tucked underneath the shear and moving this way. So now the storm is going to have the ability to move to the north and to the east because you have a high pressure steering this this way, as well as some very strong shear moving in this direction. So let's continue this forward, and you see this would be by October 10th, and then you would, of course, you would have the landfall after that into parts of Florida and Alabama. So if that occurs, that could definitely be a very dangerous situation, mainly for the flash flooding if that occurs. Hopefully that does not occur. If it moves to the west, I think it'll be much weaker than if it moves further to the north. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.